Tonight, council informational meeting be presented by our own Angelo Callis, and it's about Suicide Prevention Week. Please, the floor is yours.
Members of the council, esteemed audience, and citizens of Norwich, thank you very much. Tonight I'm here as part of a coalition to talk about our efforts with Suicide Prevention Week. I'm just going to give you a brief overview, then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jody Vera, who's been a member of our Norwich Prevention Council. Well, why did you have to change your name? And also our extra special guest tonight will be Jenica Warren, and she's going to tell you about the work that she and her peers have done on the efforts of suicide prevention. So basically, the Norwich Prevention Council has been in existence so many years that even I don't think I remember the beginning of it. And when you consider that I've been around as long as I've been around, the Norwich Prevention Council has been around for a very long time. Now, during those years, not to toot our own horns because it's not my horn, members who sit on the Prevention Council are Norwich Youth and Family Services, us, our Norwich Human Services, Norwich Police Department, Norwich Public Schools, Norwich Free Academy, Norwich Tech, various community members, so Uncas Health District. We try to pull in as many people who have a stake, particularly in issues that have to do with substance abuse, alcoholism, smoking. Now the new thing is vaping. How many of you have heard about juuling? It is a frightening trend right now. Juuling basically is, any of you have a data stick? In a data stick, in something that looks like a data stick, kids in the, and I'm sure you see it, Joe, kids in the middle schools are getting a nearly endless supply of nicotine. It is a vaping pen designed to look like a data stick. People are selling these devices to 12, 13-year-olds. Norwich Prevention Council, we take a very firm stand on that because, well, somehow we think it's wrong to go out of your way to get a kid addicted to a substance. We just are strange in that way. We also do, particularly what we're here to talk to you about now, is the prevention work that we do around suicide prevention. I went off script, and this is what happens when I do that. Other things that the Norwich Prevention Council does, the safe disposal box that we have at the police department, the Prevention Council did that. And what that does, that takes legal drugs out of people's medicine cabinets, which is where most teenagers get them. That's one of the ways, one of the quickest ways that teenagers and young people or anybody become addicted to opioids and to heroin. They have a supply of meds that are given to them for tooth extraction, for a minor surgery. They sit around, sometimes they pile up. Somebody gets their hands on them, a kid will take it to a candy party, which means that they go into their parents' medicine cabinets. They put together a bowl of various and sundry pills that they find. They may find themselves maybe constipated, or maybe with diarrhea, or maybe they'll find themselves with an addiction that they can no longer control. So the boxes are designed to collect the pills, the narcotics, to get them out of the homes into a safe disposal site. The police department does a magnificent job, and also our Partnership for Success program in terms of collecting, having take-back days at various events. So it's not only we do the drug take-back at the police department, but also various sites and festivals around town. We run out of the grant from CIRAC, which is the Southeastern Regional Action Council. We run support groups. We have cognitive behavioral prevention groups in the middle schools and in the high schools. We do a lot of education around Narcan, and we do training on Narcan. And I want to do a real shout out to Bob Farwell, who utilized a Narcan kit that we distributed to him this week and saved a life. So all props to Bob, and we hope to continue our Narcan training. We have a series of parent training. We're trying to connect with parents earlier and earlier. All literature leads us that kids need to be engaged with school, with family, and with community by grade 4. That the K through 4 period, when it comes to social development, when it comes to indicators of their ability to have success in life, those are the times. So we utilize a lot of these funds to do prevention training and parent workshops to parents about various issues. But tonight we're here to talk about suicide prevention. One of the things includes our QPR training, which is, well, that we do with our suicide prevention efforts is our QPR training, which is question, persuade, refer, Suicide Prevention Week, suicide prevention work, and things like that. Suicide is a very preventable occurrence. In Connecticut, on the average, someone dies by suicide at least every day. The Connecticut Suicide Advisory Board created one word, one voice, one life, which you all have your little pins now. We gave you jewels, so hopefully you'll remember us. We distribute the information that's in front of you, as well as other posters. Basically, what the QPR training does, and this year we trained at least over 100, I don't have the exact number, but between 100 and 120 middle schoolers and high schoolers. Depending on what year we're in and what statistics, suicide in the age group of middle school and high school is either the second or the third leading cause of death among children of that age. Research tells us that most teens that contemplate or die by suicide will not tell an adult that they're thinking about suicide. The good news, they will tell one of their friends. The bad news, their friends will not tell us. So oftentimes what happens, and when we see the phenomenon, if a child commits a suicide, if there's a suicide in a community, that the community is at a heightened sense of risk because sometimes those suicides happen in chains. One of the causes that experts believe is that maybe the second person or the third person that attempted a suicide was left with a secret, that they were told that by their friend that they're contemplating suicide. And without the knowledge of what to do next, they feel the guilt of their friend's death. What our QPR training does, it's an hour-and-a-half training. We empower these middle schoolers, these high schoolers. We also reach out to nurses and teachers and paraprofessionals, cafeteria workers, whoever is willing to get trained. We do an hour-and-a-half training where we break down to what the warning signs are for suicide, what to look for, how to sit down, how to have a conversation with your friend, how not to be afraid to ask somebody that you're concerned about, are you feeling suicidal? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? Many people believe that by asking the question, you increase the risk. The absolute opposite is true. By asking the question, the person who is feeling entirely isolated, entirely alone, all of a sudden is seen. That there's somebody that noticed me, that there's somebody that saw the level of pain that I'm involved in. Immediately, by asking the question, the risk is reduced. By giving then these kids who have been given that information, we teach them who to go to for help. We establish caring networks. Jody is central to one of these networks. We establish caring networks of adults. So if a kid receives the ticking time bomb of a friend who's contemplating suicide, they don't have to hold it for long. They don't have to keep it within them. They don't have to develop stress disorders as a result of it. They don't have to have guilt as a result. They can go to any number of adults and pass off that ticking time bomb, at which point that person can then receive the help that they want. Jody has several stories where this strategy has been effective. She may choose to share them with you or not. So that's our QPR training. We've learned a lot that our kids are in the front line in dealing with these life and death issues. I don't think anybody believes that any teen should attend a funeral where their friend has committed suicide or find a parent who is on the floor from an overdose. But they do. And we can't change that fact of their life quick enough for them right now. The most that we can do is listen to them, hear the solutions that they offer up, and help them and empower them to make a difference in their own lives. We can offer them support, and we could give them the tools to become the leaders that we need them to be, because I'm running out of ideas. And I need kids like Jenica and the rest of the kids that have been an active part in these projects to show us the way, to show us a new way. So I'm going to stop talking right now. I'm going to turn over the floor to Jody, and then you'll have a chance to meet Jenica. And hopefully a very sad and sobering subject as suicide will then become uplifting, because there's certainly hope in this field.
Bear with me. My students told me I should put my notes on my phone, so. So my name is Jody Savage. I run the Project Outreach program at Norwich Free Academy, but I am also the advisor for the NFA Prevention Council. It used to be called NFA SAD. We went with the Prevention Council model about 2 years ago. So our Suicide Prevention Week is a citywide high school week. It is a collaboration with Norwich Tech, Three Rivers Middle College, and Norwich Free Academy. Jamie Miller, Beverly Carr, and myself, we meet with students because we believe that it needs to be a student-driven program. It cannot come from the adults in order for the students to really understand what the issues are and how to prevent them. And so Suicide Prevention Month is normally held in September, but because of all of the craziness of coming back to school, getting settled, getting started, over the last 10 years, we've had our Suicide Prevention Week as the last week of April. So we each have students that meet and discuss ideas for the week. So every year, the ideas are different. Every year, we do different things. And this year, the students came up with a tremendous amount of projects and ideas that they did. Jenica was our lead at NFA. And so some of them included, we offered a QPR training luncheon. Angelo came in and met with about 30 of our students at NFA, several students at Norwich Tech as well. And we did the QPR training with them. We provided them with lunch. And this truly is an amazing program. It's like CPR for suicide. It tells the kids how to take care of their friends, their families, and get the help that's needed and see all the warning signs. I can tell you that we've been doing the QPR luncheons for about 4 years now. And one of the success stories of this is that I had a student that was communicating with another student on Facebook. She had no idea the person's actual name. He went by a different name on Facebook. He was from New London. That's all she knew about him. But after she took the training, about a week later, he started making comments on Facebook that she felt kind of coincided with some of the things that she had learned in the training. She came to me one morning and said, "I think he might be considering suicide." She goes, "But I don't know his name. I know he lives in New London. I know he goes to New London High, but other than that, I don't know anything." We were able to get our campus safety officers to contact the New London Police Department. They were able to find out who the student was. They actually went to his house. He had a gun in his nightstand and a bottle of pills. He was seriously contemplating suicide. And so she was able to save his life. And we've had numerous stories like that, faculty members who have taken the training and have saved their son or daughter. And so QPR training is very important and something that I think we should definitely continue in the schools. Each school had UCFS's mobile psych unit come to a lunch to be in the hallway or in the cafeteria during their lunchtime. So each school had that. And we at NFA, we did a raffle. So students were encouraged to come to the table, ask questions, and learn and take resources, pamphlets, brochures. And the raffle included items that were like about stress management. So we had adult coloring books, we had bubble bath, we had, Dunkin' Donuts coffee things, but it was all about taking care of yourself. And so we did that as well. We had NFA hosted a Lax to Live game. Lax to Live is a program set up by the Brian T. Daigle Foundation. Mrs. Daigle lost her son Brian, I believe 12 years ago, and he was very much into lacrosse. And so she teams up with different high schools in the area, and at the different lacrosse games, she sets up a table with information about suicide prevention. But we also set up a table, and we had, I believe you have a brochure that was designed by 2 Norwich Tech students. They designed it as part of a Catalyst Challenge for the Community Coalition on Children, and they actually won an award for that brochure. But we handed out that brochure. We also handed out free Gatorade and candy. Again, just try to get people to come to the table and learn more about suicide prevention. This year, the students wanted to do something that would grab students' attention. And so each school either sells or gives out hot chocolate or slushies or some type of drink. And so we made cup sleeves with suicide prevention information on it. And we put them on all of the cups. At NFA, every slushie that was sold had a cup sleeve on it with information about 211, One Life. So we did that. Our students also did candygrams, where they sent out a positive message as well as a piece of candy. And on the back, it again had more resources about suicide prevention to every student at the schools. Our communications departments at each of the schools got involved, and they put stuff on digital signage throughout the schools, morning announcements, that type of thing, as well as most of the schools are using student portals now, so each student got information on their student portals about suicide prevention. One of the things that we try to do every year is to do something that's visible to the community. A lot of the stuff that we do is visible inside the school, but we try to do something every year that is visible to the community and shows the community that we are doing something. And this year they came up with the idea of doing yard signs. So I don't know if you've driven by Norwich Tech during that week, or NFA, or Three Rivers Middle College, but we had signs with silhouettes, male and female silhouettes, and it represented how many students or how many people die of suicide during the day that we're in school. So 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And when we added it up, it became a 24-hour day. We took all those signs. We had those signs up all week at each school. And then for our walk, we took all the signs and put them out so people could see a visual representation. And people said it was very moving to them. One of the things we also did is that the students felt that a lot of times people don't know who they can go to for help at the schools, or if they do know who they can go to, they don't see them as human. And so we came up with an idea of, we had every counselor, psychologist, social worker submit a photo of themselves doing something that they loved, or with someone they loved. And then we did a fact sheet about them, where they went to school, what was their favorite color, what favorite book, just so that we could make them seem more human, and maybe people could draw a connection. And we hung them up all over school. And then we also had the collage, but I'm going to let Jenica talk about that. And the last thing that we do at the end of every suicide prevention week is we have a walkathon. We've been doing that for 6 years now. And it's an awareness walkathon. We have providers from all over southeastern Connecticut. We had UCFS, we had Brian T. Daigle Foundation, we had local providers, Reliance Health, I'm forgetting a ton of them. But they set up tables with information. We have games for kids, and people do laps, and we have raffles. But it's more about spreading the word and allowing people who maybe have had someone die of suicide to grieve and also share their stories. We do have a silent lap, and we do have a period of time where people can share their stories. And every year that has grown and grown and grown, and it is not something, it's not a walkathon where we ask for pledges. We do have a donation box if people would like to donate, but they don't have to. It's more about just spreading the word and getting it out there. And this year we had about 160 walkers register that morning. and that's held up on Fontaine Field. And all of the schools provide students to help at that walkathon. So we have students helping with the games, students helping with the raffle, so it becomes, again, a student-driven project. So what I'm going to do is, Jenica did this project. Every year, our students attend the Community Coalition on Children's conference. This year it was held at Mitchell College in November, where they attend different workshops. And she attended a workshop and had a spark to do what we are calling our Catalyst Challenge. And this was her entry into our Catalyst Challenge program for that conference. But it coincided with Suicide Prevention Week, and so it was part of our week, and I'm going to let her speak about this. And she also won an award at the Community Coalition Awards night the other week. So.
All right. Hello, my name's Jenica Warren. I'm a senior at North Free Academy, and like Ms. Savage said, I am a coordinator for the Suicide Prevention, for the Prevention Council, and one of the important topics for me was Suicide Prevention Week. And so, like she said, I attended the coalition thing, and I participated in a workshop called Connecting Youth. And that workshop inspired me to create this project because they talked about how you could use different techniques to connect students to the messages you're trying to give across to them. And how I started out this project is I made flyers asking students to submit pictures of them with people or things that make them happy. And after these photos were submitted, I had them printed out and I pasted them onto this heart that Ms. Savage helped me build. And along with making the flyers, I also shared the flyer on my social media to ensure that more students were aware of what I was trying to do and the message I was trying to get across with it. And after putting together the heart, I wanted to think of a simple saying to put on it, and as you can see it says, "What is your happy?" I thought that was something sweet and simple that people could think and realize that there's always something that they could be happy about. And this project is really important to me because I can personally understand how it could feel to not want to live, and I just wanted to inspire people to realize that there's always something to live for. There's always something that can make you happy, and just wanted people to see that, and I thought this was a really important project for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll begin in 5 minutes.
Whenever you're ready.
Could all please rise? Be led in prayer by Alderwoman Gould.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all our deliberations. Give us the strength and wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that peace and harmony will mark all our proceedings and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of your community. Amen.
Amen. Alderwoman Burnham, please lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I might request a moment of personal privilege.
Certainly.
May I also request that you call Mr. Robert Farwell to the podium, please? Good evening, Bob. I'd like to start by saying that I'm sure we're all aware of the article that was in the paper that related your actions relevant to overdose victim in front of the Otis Library, I believe it was it last week?
Yes, yes.
I'd just like to say that, many people want to help others in need. Fewer know what to do, and fewer still can jump to the rescue when emergencies arise. You, sir, you joined that still smaller group of heroes who saw, acted, and saved another person's life. I know that Alderman Nash knows what that feels like. I know what that feels like. I'm sure Chief Daley knows what that feels like, and I'm sure there are other people in this chamber and in our community that knows what that feels like. But to actually be the person who steps up and takes the action and does a heroic thing is commendable at its very least. And I wanted to take this moment to thank you on behalf of the community and applaud you for your actions.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll begin this evening with citizen comment in general. Anyone would like to speak to the council about any issues? You'll have 3 minutes, and please start by giving your name and your address, please. Citizen comment is open. Yes, sir. Mr. Kraft.
Good evening, David Krebs, 47 Prospect Street. My two-sided handout was copied from a 2010 Forbes magazine and addresses only one of many financial hijinks that are rooted in printing greenbacks. When associated with the graph I discussed in May, it might provide a clue to time when inflation takes a toehold. Just as gasoline prices drop when OPEC pumps more crude, interest rates drops when greenbacks are printed. And stores raise prices to collect their fair share. Forbes describes FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority that supposedly protects investors from unethical practices. When the council approved the budget the city manager surgically crafted, it had their approval to use several years of OPEB account funds to meet budget issues. How the council remains abreast of this loan was not clear. The council should provide the same protection to taxpayers, which are the source of all revenue, that FINRA does for investors. When will taxpayers be updated on the extent of this borrowing? How does the pension committee deal with this matter also? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. In the back.
Good evening. My name is Harry Robert Jarrow of 182 Prospect Street and 366 Central Avenue. My issue that I have with the council today is that the water that runs off from 6th Street down on the side of the building has caused severe damage over the years because of the way the road is humped and stuff like that. It wasn't until recently, like the last 4 or 5 years, that they put a berm in. The damage that is done sunk this, the lower sidewalk approximately 6 inches. I had the Angelo Yetz and your city engineer come and look at it. When they seen the extent of the damage, Angelo kind of chuckled more or less and saying the town's not going to get involved in this. And he said he wasn't sure if the water was coming from the side of the building. It's very evident to see that it was blown out after where the dirt came along the side of the road. There was no berm there. So what happened over the years, all that dirt got washed out. And when the dirt got washed down to a lower level, it started pushing out the driveway, which Public Works did do the patches. You can see originally when it was designed, the sidewalk had, if the water came over too fast, it had a berm of a piece of concrete set sideways so it would push it back into the road. The damage is done already, and they put the berm up just within the last 5 or 6 years, but they're not addressing the underlying issue. They always said, well, we'll deal with it when we do the road, we'll do this and stuff like that, but they don't want to do anything about it because they see all the damage it did. It actually, the side of the building actually sunk too. So now that they see it's a big job, they don't want to get involved in it. With Public Utilities was there a couple years back, and they started straightening up a wall for me. Then all of a sudden, it was at the end of the day, it was a hot day in August. The crew leader, Mr. Davis, went like this to the guy in the excavator, which is a terminology to just break it, because he thought the truck was still there. After he broke the wall, he goes, do you want me to remove the concrete? I said, you might as well now. And then when the guy in the excavator told him that the guy that was running the dump truck has already left, he was upset about that. Sometimes they do stuff that seems like they're starting out to do something nice, but they manage to mess something up and they don't want to take responsibility for it. Another issue that I do have is I see when Public Works does stuff, especially like down in Marina, they cause more damage than what they're actually helping. Like last year when they redid the side in one area, they ended up busting the pipe to the water fountain. This was done because of the weight of the machine that they were using. It's made for the road. As recently as the other day, I seen them.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry, but each person has 3 minutes. If you let some others go forward at this time, I can call you back up during the 30-minute program, please. Does anyone else like to speak to citizen comment? Yes, please.
My name is Rebecca Malucci. I live at 303 Mohegan Park Road, Norwich, Connecticut. I'm here because last year I stood here and I asked that the budget proposed that you'd give the money to the Recreation Department for lifeguards. It happened, they got the money, we didn't get any lifeguards. And guess what? We don't have any lifeguards this year either. Now, not for anything, but we're all taxpayers here. That's a city park. Yet we don't have all the facilities. We can't use all the facilities. I don't think that's right. Every other beach, and I've got a bazillion pictures here, are open 365, 724. You can walk any beach anytime you want, summer, winter, fall, doesn't matter. But yet we're closed. Can't get to it. They twisted my arm a little when I was looking to buy a place in Norwich. Oh, you like the beach? You can walk to the beach if you buy this place. True, I can walk to the beach. I can't get into the beach, but I can walk to the beach. I can walk around the pond, but I can't get into the pond. I mean, come on, people. You got the money. What did they do with the 38 grand? Did you give them another 38 grand this year? Where the heck are the lifeguards? People around here are just too damn complacent. You raise the taxes, and we get nothing. No lifeguards, no opening beach, no nothing. I mean, this is ridiculous. What do you expect us to do? What are the kids supposed to do? This is for the children. When are they going to start? When are you going to open the beach?
They're going to start Wednesday, the 20th. We have all
Yeah, and when are you going to close?
August 24th.
Yeah, before, that's what I mean. You open late, close early. Ridiculous.
I know you guys can't respond, but the beach will open. We do have all the money we need for the lifeguards. We've hired all the lifeguards that we need to staff it. We are open the exact same time we have always opened. When school is out until the end of the summer, our lifeguards are usually college students and they go back to school around that week, the last week of August. So it's the exact same thing as always, and we're really happy to open on Wednesday. It's going to be hot.
Thank you. Thank you both. Anyone else under citizen comment?
Brian Kovalar, 16 Hobart Avenue. Hope I can read my notes, because the blood pressure is running quite high tonight. The last meeting, I became a bit disturbed just knowing history here within the city, just a little bit of it. and some of the quotes that were said. At about 2.5 hours in, and please don't take this personally, but quoting, "This city has never marketed itself. Our neighbors are all doing it, all around us. We called and checked. Groton, New London, Putnam, the list goes on. They are all investing in their own future. This would be the first time we actually attempt to create some funding for that purpose." That is blatantly false. I feel like I'm watching the national news. Let's go back to January of 2006, State of the City address from Mr. Lathrop. And this was the same time that the city launched its website. We also launched Norwich Now. The city was seeking, this is quoting from the paper, to shed its old image as a poor, struggling urban center by proclaiming that it's time for developers, tourists, residents, and state officials to take a look at Norwich Now. The logo ended up winning some national awards, so it wasn't something minor. A few months later, the assistant city manager and the mayor ended up hanging a banner on the side of the NPU building so that everybody driving through the city could see. Did we invest? Well, the city council at the time had allocated $53,000. By the end of that first year, they had only spent $6,000. They diverted some to Peter Davis going to an environmental conference up in Boston, and then there was another $1,750 that was used to help bring the Smithsonian exhibit here. I need to skip through most of these, but then further comments were remarked on the video that was produced by the prior council. It was nice, educational, promoted the city resources, but it takes capital to put that out. The commercial is not anywhere yet. In fact, when this mayor took office, it was on the city website. Why did it get taken off? I don't know. Just like why did Norwich Now die during the first time that he was mayor? If you really want to know, what does it take to market it if it's too expensive on the website? Only $7 a month if you don't want the demographics, but you want it posted to the world. At $20 a month, you can do it and get full demographics. How many people in which state? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak under citizen comment? Second. Anyone else has not had a chance yet under citizen comment? Sir? Go ahead.
Harry Robert Jarrow there of 180, 182 Prospect Street and 366 Central Avenue. Now, going back to talking about public works with the marina and stuff like that, last fall there when they were doing their project fixing the concrete, they actually took the excavator and drove it into the water. Now, even though the water is brackish, not completely salt water, that stays in the grease, and technically, in order to get that so it doesn't corrode, you'd have to take the tracks off, use kerosene, clean all the grease and stuff like that, and redo it. Whereas the boom itself had enough room to reach the spot that they were going to. And when they went on break, they actually left it in the water too. Another thing is when they were floating the concrete, which means smoothing the top part out, the stuff, instead of having a pail or something like that to put it in, it went right into the river. Now that's environmental issues. There's a lot of issues with environment that Norwich Public Works is causing the problem. They should actually be the ones trying to look to do things in the proper manner and see if private citizens are doing something wrong and try to, work to keep our waterways clean. Now going back to the issue of 180 Prospect Street, how do I get it addressed so they actually come out there seriously? Like when I finally got them to put up the berm finally, before that, it was like 3 years before that I talked with Gene Paul, and he said he wasn't sure if the water was going into the yard. So I did it the old country fashioned way. What I did is I said, hold on a second, went down to the apartment house, got a 5-gallon pail, filled it up with water, went up to the spot where I told him and dumped the water, and you could see where it drained. when it rains and stuff like that, the amount of water that goes in there it causes so much damage. Can the council give me some suggestion on how to get this resolved?
Sir, there's no response during citizen comment. We listen. I assure you, people are hearing you and people are writing notes.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your time and have a nice night.
Thank you. Anyone else under citizen comment? Anyone else under citizen comment? Seeing no one else, I declare it closed, and thank you all.
Petitions and communication. Report from the Commission on the City Plan of the City of Norwich pursuant to Section 8.24 of the General Connecticut Statute, Chapter 15, Section 4 of the Norwich City Charter, amending the zoning regulations of the City of Norwich contained in the comprehensive plan by adding regulations for a village district overlay as Sections 3.10 of the zoning regulations.
Ask for a motion, please, to receive. Pro Tem Nash, there's second. Alderwoman Gould. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Motion is 7-0.
Number 2, report from the Commission on City Plan of the City of Norwich pursuant to Section 8.24 of the General Connecticut Statutes and Chapter 15, Section 4 of the Norwich City Charter, amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, accompanying the zoning ordinance of the City of Norwich by defining the limits of the Norwich Town Village District.
Again, a motion to receive, please. Alderwoman Gould, second. Pro Tem Nash. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion 7-0.
Number 3, report from the Commission on the City Plan regarding village district guidelines.
Motion to receive. Alderwoman Gould, second. Pro Tem Nash. All those in favor? Unanimous. 7-0.
Number 4, report from Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments regarding the proposed amendments to the zoning regulations of the City of the Norwich Village District Guideline Design.
Motion to receive, please. Nash and Gould. All those in favor? Unanimous. 7-0 is the vote.
Number 5, report from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection regarding the proposed amendments of the zoning regulations, City of Norwich Village District Design Guidelines.
Motion to receive. Alderwoman Filbert, second. Alderwoman Gould. All those in favor? Unanimous. 7-0.
Number 6, communication from H. Tucker Braddock, Chairman, regarding removal of Joshua Bakulis from the Harbor Commission.
Motion to receive, please. Nash and DeLucia. All those in favor? Unanimous. 7-0.
Public hearing. Number 1, relative to review applications and receive comments relative to the Neighborhood Assistance Act.
I declare this public hearing open. Those of you who like to speak concerning the Neighborhood Assistance Act, again, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. Bill Champagne, President of the Norwich Historical Society. My address is 7 Northwest Corner Road, Preston. And I just want to say good things about the Neighborhood Assistance Act. This year we're putting in several applications, the Historical Society is, 2 of which have to do with a partnership with the Society of the Founders of Norwich for the 2 properties that they own, which are 2 Town Street, right in front of Leffingwell House Museum, and the Silversmith Shop, 1772 Silversmith Shop, next to the Visitor Center. And we're working with them to secure funds. Hopefully we will be able to get some funds through the Neighborhood Assistance Act to do some very good energy-related restoration work on those 2 buildings. And we've had good success with this program in the past. with the Dr. Daniel Lathrop Schoolhouse, the East District Schoolhouse, recently the Buckingham Memorial, and we have been assisting UCFS with the Samuel Huntington Mansion. So we think it's an excellent program. We're taking very good advantage of it. We appreciate your support. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone would like to speak on this public hearing concerning the Neighborhood Assistance Act? Anyone else on the Neighborhood Assistance Act? Seeing no one else, then I declare that hearing closed. I have a statement to read, just as this is hopefully to expedite our responsibility this evening. On tonight's agenda, we have 2 ordinances scheduled for public hearings, second readings, and possible action. First ordinance seeks to amend the zoning regulations of the City of Norwich by adding regulations for Village District Overlay as Section 3.10 of the zoning regulations. The second ordinance seeks to amend the zoning map of the City of Norwich by defining the limits of the proposed Norwich Town Village District. We also have, as old business, a resolution to establish village district guidelines. Both these ordinances and the resolution are proposed by our city administration through the planning department. The planning director, with the assistance of Regan Minor, intends to speak in favor of the ordinances and the resolution and to present a PowerPoint presentation shortly. Under our practice, there is a separate public hearing for each ordinance. I think it serves no useful purpose to require that they make their remarks and repeat the PowerPoint presentation twice. Therefore, I request a procedural motion at this point that their presentation made during the first public hearing seeking to add regulations for Village District Overlay and the PowerPoint materials used during the presentation also be considered as made and presented in support of the second ordinance proposed to amend the zoning map. I also request at the start of the second public hearing that a similar motion be made for purposes of the record incorporating the remarks and PowerPoint presentation materials into the record for the second ordinance. Is there such a motion? Alderman Nash and Alderwoman Burnham. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries 7-0. Please.
Number 2, an ordinance amending the zoning regulations of the City of Norwich contained in the comprehensive plan by adding regulations for a village district overlay as sections 3.10 of the zoning regulations. Commission on City Plan?
Yes, please.
Letter from the Commission on City Plan. Honorable Mayor and alderpersons of the Council of the City of Norwich. Referral of an ordinance amending the zoning regulations of the City of Norwich contained in the comprehensive plan by adding regulations for the village district overlay as sections 3.10 of the zoning regulations. The Commission on the City Plan at its June 5th, 2018 special meeting reviewed the above referenced referral. Seated were Art Sharon, Michael Lahan, Frank Manfredi, Daniel Dineska, and Kathy Wazika. After careful consideration, the Council voted unanimously to forward a favorable recommendation with the following suggested revisions to the Council, pursuant to Chapter 15, Section 4 of the City Charter. That the regulations be revised to include the following in Section 3.10.5. Add the words use within the, where shown in yellow highlight. Eliminate the comma and make a period after Norwich Town Village District as depicted with the red strikeout through font. Eliminate the words with the exception of as depicted with red strikeouts through the font. Capitalize the word the as depicted in the red underline font. Eliminate number 3, public utility lines, stations, and buildings as depicted with red strikeouts through font. Renumber items 4 through 12 as 3 through 11 in blue font. Reason, it is consistent with the sections of the Plan of Conservation and Development to reinforce community structures and enhance the physical characters and appearance of Norwich through consideration of the adoption of the village districts in specified node areas, including Norwich Town. Respectfully submitted, Art Sharon, Chairman.
Thank you. I declare this hearing officially open, and I turn the floor over to our planner and to Regan, please. Brief and
Good
concise.
evening. Thank you for having us here this evening. So what we're going to do for you is Regan and I are going to kind of tag team this PowerPoint for you. The application for a village district is something that is in your plan of conservation and development for the city. As your professional staff here, we thought we'd bring it forward to you. It is a city-initiated application. Regan Miner is here as a member of the Plan of Conservation Development Implementation Committee, but she also worked on this project as part of her master's program, and I'd like her to tell you a little bit about that before we start.
Good evening, thank you. As Deanna mentioned, I worked on this as my capstone project for my master's. I had asked Deanna a few months ago what project would be beneficial for the city of Norwich, and we decided this project would be best suited for my needs and also the needs of the city. So we're going to get started. So what is a village district? So village districts encourage the conversion, conservation, and preservation of existing buildings and sites in a manner that maintains the historic or distinctive character of the specific district.
So village districts are an overlay zone, and what that is a regulatory tool that allows us to have special criteria on top of what an underlying zone is. So it starts as your property layer, which is your parcel layer on your GIS map. That is all the properties that are located within the city. Then you have the zoning layer, which encompasses your industrial zones, your commercial zones, your residential zones, and those have particular uses and dimensional requirements. Then the overlay is an area that you put on top of the zone that's specific just to a unique area that has different criteria. The underlying zone is the same, but it has this, it allows for you to have more discretion within those areas and have a special, in this particular case, this village district would have design and architectural review.
So I want to clarify the difference between a village district and a historic district so that there's no confusion moving forward. In Connecticut, the village district is distinctly different from a regulatory local historic district. Both encourage the preservation of historic and scenic resources, but the process for establishing each are different. So for example, in a village district, that can be adopted directly by a vote of the council acting as the zoning authority. For a historic district, it requires a lengthy study process, an affirmative vote by property owners, and approval by the town. Village district reviews are conducted by a consultant or architectural review board who submits a report and recommendations to the commission on the city plan, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. The historic district reviews are usually conducted by members of the district commission. Village district reviews are less strict than a historic district review, and the mechanism the commission uses to regulate development in the district is their certificate of appropriateness. The Connecticut General Statutes allows the establishment of village districts in areas of distinctive character, landscape, or historic value that have been specifically identified in the Norwich Plan of Conservation and Development, or for short, POCD. Village districts are identified in the 2013 POCD as a strategy for enhancing Norwich's physical character, located on page 38. And on the bottom, the quote is, "Consider establishing village districts in core node areas to help protect and enhance community character." So this map identifies some of the core community nodes in Norwich. The POCD recognizes these community nodes as focal points to be protected and enhanced to create a sense of place for residents and enhance community character. These nodes include, but are not limited to, Norwich Town, Ockham, Thamesville, Greenville, Bean Hill, Downtown, and Taffville. The first village district will be in Norwich Town with the intention of creating village districts in the other specified nodes in the community. The reason why we picked Norwich Town first is because Norwich Town has a high concentration of historic assets in close proximity to commercial development, and we want to ensure that any future development in the area is compatible with these historic assets.
So village districts require the following. You have to have regulations to create a village district. The statute requires that you have specific boundaries for your village district, and that you have to have design guidelines that provide a criteria that could be used when you're reviewing village districts. The village district regulations has an intention, and that is to enhance the aesthetics of an area by providing that the proposed buildings or modifications to existing buildings be harmoniously related to their surroundings, the terrain, and to the use, the scale, the architecture of existing buildings that are located in its vicinity. The scale, proportions, the massing, the size, and the roof treatments should be compatible with the area. And the removal or disruption of historic, traditional, or significant structures or architectural elements shall be minimized. The village district regulations will not apply to the following, and this is really important because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Existing structures used solely for residential purposes, so no residential properties will be within the jurisdiction of the village district. They can fall within that overlay, but they will be exempt from the village district regulations. Interior renovations, so anyone working within a structure that's located in a village district, there is no village district review. Normal maintenance of landscaping, if you have trees or you need to mow your lawn and you have a, dead apple tree or whatever, you should be able to replace that with the exact same thing. Any kind of normal maintenance, exempt from any kind of review. Exterior painting and paint color, that is not anything that we would be reviewing as far as within the guidelines of the village district. Existing lighting and signage, it's there, it's protected, and it's not under the review of the village district. Existing parking lots, existing buildings again, and anything that's there now is protected and does not have to conform to the village district guidelines. If it's there now, we cannot compel anyone to make changes. The village district regulations require the review of the following. So new landscaping. So you're building a new structure and you're going to put landscaping. So that would be reviewed. A parking lot. If you do a new parking lot, that would be reviewed. New signage, new lighting, new fencing would be reviewed. And any new construction or exterior renovations or additions to buildings, again, this is not relevant to residential dwellings. The proposed boundaries of the Norwichtown Village District basically start at the intersection of Route 2 and Town Street, really next to Leffingwell, including Leffingwell. And they head west along Town Street, including the neighborhood commercial zones, the planned commercial district, the general commercial zone, the R40 and a little R20. There is, where Regan has the little red dot, that is the Johnson Home, which is part of the village district, and also the Board of Education building. There's also that little portion that's yellow that includes where the corner of Cemetery Lane is, basically. You will see from this village district map, though, that the Norwichtown green area right there is not part of the village district. And the reason it's not part of the village district is because primarily it's residential there, and again, residential is exempt, and they also fall within the local and national historic districts. So they are protected. They have a process to go through for review when they're making any kind of changes to those properties. So we did not feel it was necessary to include them in the village district, and we're really looking at it as the gateways to this protected area.
So going off Deanna's comments about the gateways, I want to call everyone's attention to the images on the screen. This is Leffingwell House Museum, which is one of the gateways to Norwich Town. Visitors and residents getting off of Route 2 see this gorgeous structure on the right, and it really enhances the area because as residents see, the Leffingwell is on the left, and as they go down Town Street, there's more historic structures on the left and also on the right. And as you continue down Town Street, you will see the First Congregational Church in the distance, And I apologize that these images are a little blurry. I was literally running in the middle of the road trying to take these photos, so I was trying to be careful and avoid playing chicken with the car. So the reason why they're a little blurry is because I was running. But anyway, the point is that as you're on Town Street, driving down towards, you're near the shopping plaza, you can see the church, so you know that you're coming upon a scenic and special place. Same thing when you're on New London Turnpike near the former Benny's and the Gorin's Furniture. Again, if I was in the middle of the road and if this truck wasn't going to squish me, you could see the silversmith shop, the Joseph Carpenter 1772 carpenter shop, and then to the left of it is the Daniel Lathrop Schoolhouse, and you can see that clearly here on the corner of Town Street and New London Turnpike. And again, these are more images of historic assets that are on the Town Street and Elm Avenue area. And these are some of the historic resources that are included in the Village District. These are non-residential, so these all are either commercial or have the potential for future development in these buildings. And we felt like it was very important to include these historic assets in the Village District. And there's many more historic assets. These are just some of the few I chose to highlight tonight. So the design guidelines include architectural style recommendations, landscaping, lighting standards, signage, and they will enhance economic development opportunities within the boundaries of the proposed district. So for example, the orientation, the rhythm is specifically for any new construction that will be proposed in the Village District. It's recommended that the orientation be the same or consistent to what's already existing. It's not recommended to have the setback further back that is not consistent with what's already existing. Same with the rhythm. It's recommended that things look very similar and consistent. It is not recommended that the structure be taller, the roof line is different, or it's oriented differently. So these images are examples of similar to what we were discussing in the previous slide with orientation and rhythm. So as you can see, these buildings here were probably built in different time periods, but the roof lines are consistent, the styles are fairly consistent, and it just matches very nicely. This is an example here of a way to enhance walkability and vehicular traffic. The vehicles are parked here on the sidewalk is buffered by landscape, and there's a nice sidewalk for people to shop and visit restaurants in the area.
And those images, real quickly, if you go back to that one, those images will be added into the guidelines, the recommendation of the, I'm sorry. So, I'm sorry. These images that are being shown now, these are some additional images that will be added into the guidelines to make it clear. The Commission on the City Plan had asked to have some more pictures, so these are some recommended pictures.
And below, as Jana mentioned, I have where the image was added in the design guidelines, so just for everyone's reference moving forward. These are some examples of encouraged light fixtures and encouraged signage. And this is another example of how enhancing the streetscape can encourage walkability and can contribute to the sense of place and the overall destination feel of a community. So as you can see, the cars are parked here. There's a nice sidewalk. There's landscaped. On the opposite side of the street here, there's trees. And same here, the cars are buffered by the landscape and the sidewalk for pedestrians. So one of the things we wanted to explain was what's encouraged and not encouraged in the Village District. We're not encouraging these tall freestanding pole signs because they're really a better place in a street that has higher volume traffic and that has enhanced speeds. These are also good when the building is set back from the road so people can see the signs if they can't see the building. This kind of monument sign is encouraged because it's lower visibility, lower to the ground, it's in people's visual line of sight, and we're also encouraging some plantings or landscape and it illuminated by some sort of light fixtures.
And I think that this is a good example that shows that the city is really open to any type of businesses. We're still, the regs don't change. You can still have any kind of a branded restaurant and something like a Chili's. This sign is from Glastonbury. But, it still is encouraging for there's no prohibition from any kind of chains or anything like that. This just allows for you to have those signs, but really makes it more visible for people who are walking and driving and riding bikes because they're not looking up at a sign to see where they're at.
We're not encouraging the use of floodlights because more often than not, they have light trespass or spillage to other properties. We were encouraging pendant lighting because they can still serve the same purpose of creating a safe environment, a well-lit, safe environment, but they are a little more attractive and they will prevent light trespass onto other properties. And this is another example of pendant lighting used to serve the same purpose. So we're not encouraging open utility structures. We're encouraging them to be buffered by landscaping or some sort of fencing, or in this case, the image is showing both.
So village district designation is not going to affect existing commercial structures. I just want to make that clear to everybody. The village district applies to future applications for commercial development within boundaries of the Norwichtown Village District. And that if a commercial business falls within the boundary of the Norwichtown Village District overlay zone and wishes to alter the exterior of their building, it will trigger village district review for compatibility. The village district review process is going to be as follows. It's going to be flexible, and applications can be reviewed by staff, the Council of Governments, or by a consultant whose fees may be paid by the applicant. I mean, we may be able to do it without having fees, but we wanted to have all the options that would be allowed to us to move forward with this. The reviewer by state statute must be either an architect, a landscaped architect, or an AICP certified planner, which is the American Institute of Certified Planners. The city may also designate as a village district consultant an architectural review board, which includes one of those type of reviewers. So for the ease of review, we have come up in suggesting a tiered manner for reviewing applications from a simple to complex three-stage process. So a tier one activity would be something very simple. An activity would be something such as the installation of a sign, an awning, new lighting, maybe a public art display or historical marker, solid waste containers and recycling containers, and fire exits and handicap accesses or fences. Those were things that would be tier one, quick review, very minimal information to be provided. We can turn that around real fast. A tier two activity would be something a little bit more complex. We're talking about replacement of stairs. So you're really looking at the architecture of the building when you're doing that. You're looking at accessory buildings to see how they look in relation to the surroundings, the appropriateness of the landscaping, some minor additions up to 200 square feet or less, sidewalks if you're going to be doing new sidewalks in the area, siding and facades for new buildings or for buildings that are existing that they want to replace those, and window or door replacements. So those require a little bit more thought and review in the process, so they would be a tier two. A tier three activity would be new structures, so we're talking about not residential, obviously, but we're talking about commercial structures. Residential if it was a new residential apartment complex or something like that, but not existing residential. So if we were talking about new condos or something, they would fall under this. So new structures, major additions of over 200 square feet, new paved parking lots. If you're going to create a new parking lot, you were going to install roof-mounted solar systems in any application, or that's going to require or trigger a site plan approval from the Commission on the City Plan or a special permit. All proposals that really don't adhere to tier one or tier two and that seem pretty complex would be automatically a tier three, and all municipal improvements would be a tier three.
So there are many other village districts in the state of Connecticut. One of a comparable example would be Middletown, because they are the same size of community as we are. They're a more urban center. The example that I really like is Westport's village district. I've blown it up here on the side, and I'm trying to see, I think, so the red is Westport's local historic district, and the purple is their village district. And I liked this comparison because this is going to be similar to what Norwich does if, in fact, we establish village districts in our community. It will be directly next to the local historic district, and there, as you can see, there is some overlap between the red and the purple, and that will be the same with us as well. We'll have some overlap with the local historic district and the village district.
So the steps for adoption. So on Monday, May 7th, the Norwich City Council received the proposed ordinances and resolution. And then the City Council referred that proposal to the Commission on the City Plan for review. There was three. There was 2 ordinances and the resolution, which would be for the guidelines. The Commission reviewed the 3-part proposal on June 5th to determine the consistency with the POCD, and the CCP made 3 positive referrals with some changes, such as adding more images to the design guidelines and including some changes of wording recommended by staff in the guidelines as well as in those the regulations. Tonight, the council receives the referral and opens the public hearing, and this is the public's opportunity to speak on the village district, and the council has an opportunity to make their decision at their discretion. They have, because this is a city-initiated application, you can take your time reviewing that and continue the public hearing if you want to. I would ask that if you had particular questions, you would allow us to come back after comments from the public, and if you want anything, if you feel that there's something that's holding you up in making a decision and clarification, I definitely would like the opportunity to address that, either myself or with Regan. I do have a couple other quick things I wanted to put on the record, though, real fast. Take this. So I just wanted to add in the record, and I'm going to give these things to Betsy too, is this was a policy tool for smart growth in New England, and this came from the state of Connecticut and the New England Environmental Finance Center. It's dated June 2006. This gives a little background about Connecticut Village District Act. It was, the act came into effect in May 1998. Connecticut Governor John Rowland at the time signed it into law to establish village districts, and the Connecticut's groundbreaking Village District Act was prompted by the desire of 2 towns, Brooklyn and Canterbury, to preserve community character in ways that existing laws did not allow at the time. So this really was initiated by the eastern part of the state to really protect our communities. I think Norwich has some amazing architecture. We have these really special places here. It's a great tool. I think village districts is our wonderful tool. It gives staff, I will tell you from my perspective, an opportunity to collaborate more. We're often asked what type of uses the city wants on a particular property. I don't really have any guidance for them, and so we don't have any architectural standards. In this particular case, if we started in Norwich Town, I'd say, here's the guidelines, here's some recommendations, this is what you can look at. The guidelines are just that. I want to clarify. They're guidelines. They're not regulations. That means that they can look at them. They can determine if it's something that they feasibly can do and have conversations with staff and do some collaboration and compromise. And if they can't, there is an opportunity for them to go in front of the Commission on the City Plan, who actually is the one that would approve the recommendation. So once they make an application comes in, we review it either by those different processes that can happen. Then that recommendation goes to the Commission on the City Plan, even if it's a zoning permit for something small. And they would look at that and either agree with that recommendation or not. And it gives the opportunity to someone who's applying that cannot comply or doesn't want to comply with the village districts for some reason, that opportunity also to talk to the Commission on the City Plan. And hopefully, though, this will be a great a tool for us to use so that if they can't comply 100% or someone doesn't, can't meet some of the things that are in here or feels that it's not appropriate for their building, that we're going to use reasonableness. It's all about making good things happen in Norwich and making these areas vibrant and promoting economic development in a way that does not detract from other things that are around them. So I wanted to add this policy tool information into the record. Also wanted to reiterate to you a couple of things that are in the Plan of Conservation and Development. Under the reinforced community structure, the plan recognizes that there's 2 different dimensions in community structure, and that's planning districts and neighborhoods and focal points and nodes. And it says to recognize planning districts, and it gives some different districts in the city, including Norwich Town. And then it says to focus on those core areas and nodes. And the plan recommends that the attention and efforts be directed towards maintaining and enhancing these focal points. In studies of community character, people react positively to areas such as these, especially if they have a strong sense of place based on their physical configuration, their overall appearance, their economic vitality, and other factors. And they give examples of our downtown, Greenville, Taffville, Norwichtown, Thamesville, Ockham, Bean Hill, and Yantic. The plan recommends that greater attention be devoted to maintaining and enhancing these core areas than the fringe areas. And the fringe areas, the map that Regan showed earlier, there's a small circular area. Regan, could you go back down on the screen? On all these nodes in our plan, they have a fringe, they have their node area, and then you have a fringe, which is a larger circle. So we made sure that the Norwichtown Village District fell within actually the specific node and not the fringe. So I wanted to note that to you. Again, in the implementation element, it's consider establishing village district in those core node areas to help protect and enhance that community character. Again, the small nodes is what we're talking about. The bigger is the fringe area. And let me see. Those are the things I wanted to add there. And I guess I'm just available for questions after the public speaks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. Okay, first signed up right now is... Yeah, for purposes of the public hearing, I will be asking people who are speaking in favor of this ordinance first. First person signed up is Ann Lathrop.
Hi, I'm Ann Lathrop, 403 Washington Street, Norwichtown, Connecticut. Tonight, as members of the City Council, you have the opportunity and the responsibility to ensure that the character of various portions of our city will be protected for future generations. The amendment of the zoning regulations of the City of Norwich to include the Village District overlay provision will preserve and enhance the existing unique qualities of the areas in the city while providing economic development that otherwise unchecked and unregulated might lead to the deterioration of the attractiveness and value of these areas to residents and visitors alike. Specifically, Norwichtown, which beckoned to us over decades and thousands of miles, and I have to say 24 moves, possesses a grand collection of colonial dwellings, green, the Colonial Cemetery, the Lowthorpe Meadows, streetscapes and landscapes, its unique features. Residents treasure the past, and outsiders view our architectural and ambience with admiration and awe. We as a city, and you as our elected representatives, have a duty to the past, the present, and the future to maintain, to promote, and preserve this attractiveness. The purpose, the objectives of the Village District overlay, and the mechanism for implementing and enforcing these laudable aims are before you. It will take vigilance on the part of the city and a spirit of cooperation between the city and developers who propose changes to see that these altogether reasonable design guidelines are understood from the outset and that these requirements are enforced. The first step will be your adoption of these proposals and guidelines. As a part you are able to play in the governance of our city, please consider it your duty, your obligation, your opportunity, your legacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Matthew Brown.
Good evening. Matthew Brown, 51 East Town Street. We too were attracted to the historic character of Norwichtown approximately 10 years ago when we decided to move our family from South Carolina to live in a historic district to work in this community. It is a charming, historic area. I do go out of my way to avoid that current strip on the way towards the First Congressional Church, just because of its unattractiveness. I prefer driving through the charm of the neighborhood to get to my house. I do think it would have been nice if all of this could have happened 40 or 50 years ago when those buildings were being made in the first place. However, it's too late for that. In the future, for any development, I think it's a fantastic idea to have partnership with the community and have the aesthetics that are in fitting with the community that would enhance the community in only positive ways. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Martha Healy.
Good evening. Martha Healy, 19 East Town Street, Norwich. I'm a relatively new transplant to Norwich. I've lived here 30 years, all of it in Norwich Town. Prior to coming to Norwich, I lived in Massachusetts in an area between Lexington and Concord, which, if you don't know, is the birthplace of the American Revolution. What I learned from living there was that a town that embraced its history and accentuated it prospered. It didn't stop development, but increased it, and tourism became a primary industry. When the area was appealing, people came for the history. I think the Norwich Town Village District Overlay Zone will enhance what we already have, encourage both development and a place where people want to live and work.
Thank you. James Healy.
James Healy, 19 East Town Street. Having worked in New Bedford, Massachusetts in the early 1980s, I saw our city suffering from hard economic times. However, they were able to capitalize on their historic heritage as a former whaling capital and use it as an economic engine to help drive new development. New Bedford is now a very thriving city in New England. The Norrichtown Village Overlay District proposal will give Norwich the same chance to begin to capitalize on its own historic roots and usher in a new era of economic development. I urge you to pass this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bill Champagne.
Bill Champagne, President of the Norwich Historical Society, 7 Northwest Corner Road, Preston, Connecticut. The Norwich Historical Society has been working with the residents of the Norwich Town Historic District and the surrounding area. We've helped them have several meetings to discuss what can be done in Norwich Town to enhance Norwich Town. And village districts in Norwich Town is one such thing that could help. Village districts encourage compatible development, and we, the Historical Society, believe the Norwich Town Historic District is one of Norwich's significant heritage areas. We've been in front of you talking about Norwich's history and heritage before. This is a really special place. We encourage the council to adopt village district regulations and map. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jonathan Webster.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Webster. I live at 8 Elm Avenue in Norwich Town. First of all, I'd like to present a petition that was put on change.org regarding the preservation of Norwich Town, and specifically this topic tonight. The petition is signed by 85 residents of Norwich Town supporting this measure. I live here with my wife and 2 young sons. We moved here just about a year ago to live in this special place, this special neighborhood. We love the Lowthorpe Meadows. We love the cemetery. We walk in the cemetery. We walk in the meadows. We enjoy things on the green. We love the history, and we really want to preserve this place that we have here. Embracing and enhancing the Norwich Town Historic District benefits the character of the entire city. New development should be consistent with the historic character of Norwich Town. Establishing a village district would facilitate planning, suitable screening for site odor, light pollution, and litter, et cetera, between commercial land uses and the irreplaceable assets we all enjoy in Norwich Town. Establishing a village district would provide a forum to review changes to structures and landscapes in Norwich Town and strengthen the sense of place and promote community involvement benefiting the entire city. I urge you to support the establishing of village districts, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Jan Akes?
Good evening. I live on 14 Elm Avenue, which is on the Norristown Green. We've lived there for 38 years. I take pride in my gardens in the front yard, and some of you may have seen them. So I take a lot of pride in our residents, and we try to maintain it in the tradition of Old Norwich. I think this is an excellent idea. I think it will be a precedence for other nodes in the town, perhaps in Ockham or Taftville, where neighborhoods can focus on creating their own districts and strengthen the inner workings of the town. We're all trying to get more people involved in government. Everybody seems to be lackadaisical about participating in their community. I think this would be an excellent way of having participatory neighborhoods, and not perhaps starting at Norwich Town, but going to other areas in the town. It creates a rational approach to further encroachments on existing historic districts. I think it would be beneficial for the whole town and for various neighborhoods in the city to adopt this type of planning. So I'm in favor of district villages, and that's why it was established in 1998 to allow towns to establish this. So we have this opportunity. We should really take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dane Rue?
I'm Dane Rue of 94 Mediterranean Lane in Norwich. When I first moved here last August, I was absolutely thrilled to begin a new chapter of my life. A new job, a new house, and a new beginning in the Norwich Town Historic District. I was first introduced to this remarkable city several years ago, and since then I have been privileged to work for and volunteer on behalf of some of our best historic heritage assets, many of which you simply cannot experience anywhere else. Working on behalf of institutions such as the Slater Memorial Museum and the Leffingwell House Museum, it didn't take me long to see the value in this community. It makes me proud to live here, and I hope to spend many memorable years here. Being a citizen of this community comes with responsibility, though, and I would be remiss if I were to simply take what this community can offer for granted. It is incumbent upon us as citizens and elected officials alike to be forward-thinking enough to enact common-sense measures that will do their part in taking care of our historic and cultural assets. The proposed Norwich Town Village District will do just that. It will provide a framework for future commercial development that is high quality, responsible, and meaningful. We as a community want to take pride in living in Norwich, and we especially want to know that our leaders and neighbors alike take great pride in defending our historic landscape today and for the future. Recently, I had the honor of placing flags and markers upon the graves of those who came before us. One of the most notable includes Revolutionary War hero Colonel John Durkee. Colonel Durkee's grave sits along the stone wall of the Colonial Burying Ground overlooking Town Street, within a short walking distance to the Norwich Town Green, Lowthorpe Meadows, Leffingwell House Museum, and more. When the Council considers the vote on this measure, I implore you all, as well as everyone in this room, to understand that the protections and preservation methods executed from the Village District go far beyond simply making an attractive streetscape. It's never just about us. It's about the many thousands of Norwichians who came before us, European, African American, Native American, and many more. Their lives and their legacies matter too. And tonight, it's up to us to ensure that our community can develop as a true gateway that honors our rich history and makes us feel proud to live and invest in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in support of this ordinance? Anyone else like to speak in support of this ordinance?
Ryan Kovalar, 16 Hobart Avenue. I'd like to ask permission to also speak during the second portion of this public hearing. Okay, thank you. I wanted to say that I read through the entire design guidelines as well as the zoning, and they did a fantastic job. It's thorough, it's in-depth, and to be commended to the entire team that put it together. I'm in support overall of the general principle of having the village overlay placed on the Norwich Town area. I think it's going to be of long-term benefit to the city that is going to be echoed in many, many decades to come. It's a step in the right direction. I'll reserve my other comments for the second portion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in support of this ordinance? Anyone else in support of this ordinance? Third time, anyone else in support of this ordinance? Seeing no one further, anyone in opposition to this ordinance? Anyone in opposition to this ordinance? Oh, please.
Good evening, David Krebs, 47 Prospect Street. The few comments in the overlay district documentation avoided the risk-benefit ratio aspect of this critical data. To begin, the number of parcels is much greater than the mind can grasp. The current tax revenue should be considered since the city is wrapping up revaluation. When the city mill rate is among the highest in Connecticut, feeding more than most schools seems problematic. Many residents are not aware of the district imposition on property owners with so many parcels. It seems possible that half the parcels could be vacated. The fear of roundabouts on West Main Street should be considered. A village district is roundabouts on steroids, is my view. And the death of downtown. When I arrived from the West Coast Service Navy in 1960 to attend basic submarine school, Christmas in Norwich required police supernumeraries to keep bumper-to-bumper traffic moving in downtown. There were 2 to 3 music stores, 2 multi-floor furniture stores, dentists, Oglenuck's top-notch jewelry store, and even more. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in opposition to this ordinance?
Ryan Kovalar, 16 Hobart Avenue, returning, and thank you for the consideration. This is not speaking in opposition to the ordinance, but it is something that I detected when I read through all the documents. As a little bit of history, years ago when Ed Clifford was assistant city manager and I was serving on a city committee, we began looking at a number of properties where we could potentially end up inviting public art to be displayed. That was a very, very good exercise in determining potential locations. The unfortunate thing that we found at the time was that art, public art, was zoned out of the city as a general rule. That was very disappointing at the time, but in the long run, I developed a proposal for a sculpture garden that would be on the triangle across from American Ambulance. And Bill, you'll remember the submission to the Sachem Fund for that. We had received permissions all the way up through the state of Connecticut for placing it there because zoning in the city of Norwich does not apply to state property. We even secured a sculpture that was originally designed to be up on top of the hill where the insurance company is now, overlooking the harbor. that had been in storage at Norwich Public Works. However, that failed due to a lack of funding from Sachem at the time. So when I read through this entire document, I noted that there was public art listed in there. This would be a first, and as such, I read a little further, it would go before the Monuments Committee. So the Monuments Committee, as I read through all of that documentation, specifically takes you to monuments that would be donated to the city, would become city property, and would be located on city property. It does not deal with public property at all or anything else, but all going directly to the city, which the city would then end up maintaining. And I don't know if it's going to involve a minor change to this ordinance to clear that up, or if it might involve a change to the Monuments Committee language with their charter to allow them to facilitate what they want to do with the village district. Just a little flaw, still 100% in support of the village ordinance itself. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Is there anything else in opposition to the ordinance? Anyone else in opposition? Third time, is there anyone else in opposition? Is there rebuttal?
Hello, Deanna Rhodes for the record. I just wanted to address the comment that was just made about the monuments. So the monuments would be one of the things in the guidelines is to recommend it to send it to them for their recommendation on it. And that can be tweaked, or we can speak with them about what their responsibility would be in that. But Regan can kind of speak to what we were talking about when it came to monuments. You know, appropriate, if you're looking at the area of Norristown, we would want some appropriate review of what type of, public displays might be there, so that it's sensitive to that area. But we're, again, it's a guideline and it's something to look at. It's just some kind of oversight just to kind of review the appropriateness for the area. I don't think there was any other things that I need to rebut. I just wanted to, reiterate some of the positive things that were said. This is a great opportunity for the city to really show their appreciation for their unique character. I think that we need to sell ourselves. We know what we have here, and I think by saying, taking that responsibility and saying we're going to create these village districts and we're going to look forward to the future here and protecting the assets that we have and really finding compatible development that works with them. I think it's just such a positive step for the city. I just think it's a great tool and we should be using it. I did want to add that I was approached, I received a phone call from the Episcopal Church in Yantic, next to the Hale Mill, and they asked why the Yantic area wasn't in our nodes for a village district, and I thought that it has, I thought that it's a great idea, and I have been thinking it's a great idea. So two areas that are not specifically called out in the Plan of Conservation Development that would be looked at in the future, I believe, would be that area next to the Hale Mill, which would be a great little village district there for commercial development, and making sure that it's appropriately designed to not detract. And that's what we need to remember. Not affecting the businesses, except for to say when you are improving your business and you're moving forward or you're coming to our community because you want to be here. They come here because they want to be here. How can you fit in more appropriately? How can we support you to make your business successful? And how can you benefit the city and not detract so that we maintain our assets and don't lose them all over time? So, but I think the Hale Mill area would be a great place for a village district, and also the small area that is around the Uncas Leap, the upper and lower falls, and the intersection there. And down, including, so that would be, what is that, Sachem and Lafayette, or Sachem, that area, I can't off the top of my head there, where the restaurants are, and there was a liquor store there. That kind of node right there could use some enhancing, and I think architecturally to make it fit in what's there. We have some great structures there. So we just want to continue to create a sense of place in the city. This would be a unique way to deal with public-private partnerships, with that design collaboration that we could have, that we want to respect, again, the quality of development in these sensitive, unique areas. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else I want to say to you tonight. I just think that it's really ideal, and I think our city is really special, and let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Do we
Alderman
have-
Browning?
Do we have to wait till we close the public hearing to ask questions?
Actually, the question is, are we going to close the public hearing or not first? I guess the best thing, for the record, Corporation Council, the recommended changes by the Commission on City Plan, do they constitute significant change to the ordinance as proposed, which then would require us to republish for first and second read?
Well, you're not going to be able to vote on anything if you keep the public hearing open.
Right.
If you close the public hearing tonight.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
Could you approach the mic, please?
If you close the public hearing tonight, then you can take up this ordinance, and presumably the next ordinance. But if you amend them, those amendments are going to prevent you from voting on the end product tonight. You'd have to adopt the ordinance as amended at another meeting. There wouldn't be another public hearing. You'd amend it tonight, it has to be republished, and then you'd come back and vote at a later time,
As amended.
as amended.
Is everyone clear on that?
No.
Okay. We can close the public hearing tonight on this ordinance. It will allow us to vote on the ordinance later on in the meeting. Should we consider any of the recommendations from the CCP, which causes the ordinance to be amended, we would not be able to take a final vote. We would then have to republish that amended ordinance, notice it as a first read, and then a second read, and then we'd be able to take final action on it.
No, you wouldn't have a first reading or a second reading. You would take it up at the next meeting that is scheduled for, because you will have had your first reading already. Your second reading will occur tonight if you close the public hearing. If you introduce it and then amend it, because it's amended, you can't act on it tonight. It has to be republished.
Just
but
once.
you'll be acting on the resolution, the motion rather, the ordinance as amended at either July 2nd or July 16th, whatever you schedule for.
My sole interest was whether I could ask questions and to speed the process up, do it so in a public manner, rather than, I didn't necessarily want the hearing closed. I just wanted to simply have a bit of a back and forth with Deanna Rhodes on the record.
Well, you can certainly do that during the
Consideration of the ordinance. You
during your
absolutely
discussion
have
of the
that
ordinance.
right.
You can ask the administration for help on questions. That's not necessarily part of the public hearing. That's just the resource of the administrative planner.
No, so what you're saying is the public hearing would have to be closed before I could ask questions and during a council meeting where everyone could hear the questions.
Well, I think the thing is that the way it's structured is those speaking in favor, those speaking against, and those in rebuttal. So, I mean, it really isn't part of the debate to ask a question at this point. But I think if you have a question that you're confused, if you ask it, you get an answer now. But a long colloquy, you'd be better off doing it during
No,
an actual debate.
Well, perhaps I could just ask the question. If you think it would take too much time to answer, you could defer. Would that be fair? Let's say that I'm a developer and I purchase a Benny's property, and my budget's about $200,000 for renovations, and these recommendations are in this particular village district is something which I would have to follow. Would the result be revenue neutral? In other words, it wouldn't cost any more money, cost less money, or cost more money? And if so, how much?
So how I look at that is most developers that are coming in that are doing any kind of, especially commercial developers, they don't just come in with an application, plop it on our desk and say, here it is, here's the application. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on in meetings ahead of time. So if they know they're within, on the zoning map, they're within an area that has a village district, they're going to come in and speak with me about it, and we're going to have the conversation about what the village district says and what that architectural design styles are, or what the landscaping, should be considered. I don't think it's necessarily that it's going to cost any more money. I think it's just the design criteria. You just need to look at that from the beginning and kind of plan for that. There's architecture that, that you could be cost savings by doing it this way. You really can't determine that unless you know what the project is and what their ideal, their design was that they were going to do. It doesn't mean that you can't take a design from somewhere else and do it in Norwich Town, but it might be something if you're looking at the architecture, the type of roof line, and say they kind of come in with something with a flat roof. It might be recommended, hey, have you looked at a peak roof? That's where it really matches the buildings that are in the area. This is kind of the aesthetic we're going for. And so I don't think it's necessarily a cost prohibitive thing to do. I think you just need to plan ahead. And they're already doing that. They're already coming in way ahead of time and asking, what can we do? What do you want? What should it look like? And we don't have any guidelines to tell them now. And it's unfortunate because, you get what you get. And if you don't have anything, you're going to get whatever, a metal building. Go ahead, that's fine. You have to, maybe that's appropriate in certain areas of the city and maybe in other areas it's not. But your own plan identifies certain areas of the city that should be treated a little bit differently because of their character.
Yeah, not to go on a rant because time is limited. I have strong disagreements with our plan of conservation and development, but that's for another day.
Right, thank you. I'm here if there's any more questions since I'm standing here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on rebuttal? Anyone else on rebuttal? Third time. Anyone else on rebuttal? Yeah. I can ask for a motion to close the public hearing, please. Gould, Nash, all those in favor? Opposed? The hearing is closed.
Number 3, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, accompanying the zoning ordinance of the City of Norwich by defining the limits of the Norwich Town Village District.
As in keeping with the earlier comment, I am asking for a motion and second that the remarks and presentations of our Planning Director, Deanna Rhodes, and Regan Minor, and the PowerPoint presentation made in support of the first ordinance be adopted and incorporated as remarks and materials submitted in support of the second ordinance, that proposing to amend the zoning map to define the limits of the Norwich Town Village District, and that the same remarks and materials be considered as offered in support of a resolution to establish village district guidelines. Motion by Nash, second, Alderman Burnham. Those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries 7-0. Commission on City Plan letter, please.
To the Honorable Commission on City Plan, to the Honorable Mayor and Alderpersons of the Council of the City of Norwich. Referral for an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, accompanying the zoning ordinance of the City of Norwich by defining the limits of the Norwich Town Village District. The Commission on City Plan met at its June 5th, 2018 special meeting, reviewed the above reference referral. Seated were Chairman Art Sharon, Michael Lahan, Frank Manfredi, Daniel Daneska, and Kathy Wazika. After careful consideration, the Commission voted 4-1 to forward a favorable recommendation to the Council pursuant to Chapter 15, Section 4 of the City Charter. Reason: it is consistent with the section of the Plan of Conservation and Development to reinforce community structures and enhance the physical character and appearance through consideration of adoption of the village district in specified node areas, which include Norwich Town. Respectively submitted, Art Sharon, Chairman.
Thank you. I declare this public hearing open, and if anyone would like to speak in favor of this ordinance, you'll have 3 minutes. Please give your name and address. Anyone like to speak in favor of this second ordinance? Anyone like to speak in favor? Anyone like to speak in favor? Seeing no one, anyone like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Anyone like to speak in opposition to the ordinance before us? Third time, anyone like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Seeing none, ask for a motion, please, to close this public hearing. Alderwoman Gould, second Pro Tem Nash. All those in favor? Unanimous. Vote is 7-0.
Second reading and action on the above proposed ordinances. Number 2, an ordinance amending the zoning regulations of the City of Norwich contained in the comprehensive plan by adding regulations for the Village District Overlay as Section 3.10 of the zoning regulations.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Nash and Gould. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to propose to amend this so that it is consistent with what I understand is the recommendation of the excuse me, Commission on the City Plan as outlined in Petition and Communication number 1.
Thank you. Is there a second? Pro Tem Nash. You have the floor, sir.
Well, the Commission on the City Plan clearly reviewed this in depth. They gave us substantial, however, I should say substantial and in-depth recommendation in terms of some wording. I believe that their intent and their purview justifies the recommendation, and I believe that we should follow it and adopt it.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Alderwoman Filbert.
So just so I understand, if and do we do vote favorably to amend this, then we will not vote on this evening. We will republish it in the paper, and we will bring it back next meeting.
Yes, if that is the body's wish, we can do
And I
that.
have a follow-up question. Did I understand, I'm having trouble getting through all this paperwork. Did I understand the city clerk to say that the Commission on the City Plan voted 4-1 in favor of this?
Pardon me? This was unanimous.
This was a favorable.
This one was unanimous.
Was the previous one 4-1?
The second one was 4-1. Yes.
The second one was 4-1.
Yes.
I have to, although I do not like the idea of postponing things and spending more money, I've never sat here in council chambers before where we didn't take the suggestion of the Commission on the City Plan, and I would be perplexed to find out why we would do it now.
I'm sorry, is that a question?
It's a rhetorical question.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? It's unanimous. Vote is 7-0. Okay. Yes, Alderman. Yes, go right ahead. Browning.
On 3.10.5 Village District uses, it says that motor vehicle fueling stations are not permitted in the Norwich Town Village District. There are at least 2 service stations there currently. I would like to amend to remove 6 because I think that we're already allowing vehicle fueling stations in the area, and I do not understand why there's a prohibition on that.
That's in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? Alderman Burnham? Okay. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Yes.
I'd like the city planner to come up, please. So to Alderman Browning's question, I believe he's asking, we already have gas stations, service stations, in the Village District area, and that's, I would believe, because they were already existing there.
Yes,
That
that's
we can't make them move, but we can prohibit new gas stations from coming into the area.
That is correct. So what is there, and what would be not allowing for new fuel gas stations within the Village District.
Why would we want to prohibit a new gas station from being in the Village District?
Well, Village District's, one of the primary things that you want to do is you want to make it so that they are a multimodal area where you have biking, walking, and vehicular traffic. And something like a gas station is primarily a vehicular place, that it's really just for cars primarily. So we already have 2 gas stations that are there. It's a small area of the community, and we just feel that 2 is appropriate for that size of the Village District, and having more there really isn't necessary. And again, we want to promote walkability, and when you have gas stations, it's a little more difficult. They usually have multiple entrances in and out of gas stations. It's not necessarily the safest use there if you want to promote, again, a village setting where people feel comfortable walking and riding bikes as well.
One of the things is that realistically, there's not a sidewalk running the full length of that particular street, so walkability is not an issue at the present time, which is particularly safe. I mean, Regan has basically described what it's like to cross the street there. I mean, I respectfully disagree about prohibiting future gas stations in that area.
Okay.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Alderwoman Filbert.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought. My question is the million-dollar question. Is Burger King grandfathered?
So what happens with any application is zoning regulations only effective after the effective date. So if the council adopts the zoning regulations, then there's a period of time, you set an effective date, and it's usually after it goes in the newspaper, and then that's that effective date. If an application for anything comes into the city up until the date of the effective date of that ordinance, it is grandfathered in and does not have to comply. So should the council, decide to wait, for a certain amount of time to make a decision on these ordinances, and then have an effective date a few weeks out or something like that, you open the window for more applications to come in that won't fall under it. But it's not specific to one particular application, but you do need to know that, and that's in the case of any zoning ordinance. It doesn't take effect till the effective date.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the amendment?
On the
Pro Tem
amendment,
Nash?
I was just clear on the amendment, right?
It's just the amendment. Yes.
I just, want to clarify the sidewalk situation. There is a sidewalk that goes from the 232 connector all the way around, all the way down to the exit off of 395.
Okay.
So there's plenty of sidewalk, except for the entrance where the laundromat and Dunkin' Donuts, there's no sidewalk there. But
Absolutely.
My quick question was, if one of the gas stations were to close, for instance, say the Sunoco closed, and then somebody bought it, it could maintain
Absolutely.
usage of
Don't
the
forget,
building.
we have nonconformities too, so
Gotcha.
nonconformities exist and they continue to go on forever. And as a matter of fact, the Connecticut General Statutes just made it even harder to eliminate nonconformities. There used to be time periods that you could state, if you didn't do something within a certain amount of time. Now, if you have a nonconformity, it's really difficult to say someone can't have it anymore. So yeah, the only thing it would apply to if they wanted to reoperate, open up after several years and say, hey, we're going to change the architecture. Now the architecture needs to comply, but it doesn't make the gas station go away.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Alderwoman Burnham.
I think that the purpose of venturing into something like this is for future planning, for future placemaking, and I know our planner is on the never-ending adventure of complete streets streets that are friendly for pedestrians, bicyclists, and those with disabilities, to make them safe. So you have to consider that while there might not be sufficient sidewalks now, as this may move forward 10, 15, 20 years from now, it will enable for better planning for those types of things.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
So not only do we have the 2 gas stations, but we also have service, a national chain service, well, automotive service present on Town Street. So I don't think we're lacking for such kind of that business. But even if we were not to do the village overlay, not to be too far in the weeds on a gas station, but a gas station would have significant hurdles to overcome under current zoning regulation, as I understand it, with the 1,000-foot ban, or I shouldn't say ban, the 1,000-foot regulation in terms of spacing. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, because the council months ago eliminated the distance between gas stations, if you remember correct. But for auto repair places, it's still in effect, that separation distance, but not for gas stations. So that gas stations now would allow for co-location near each other. So that particular thing that you mentioned has been changed in the regulations.
So to Alderman Burnham's point about complete streets, I like that phrase, because when we consider being able to provide gasoline to the motoring public, right? There's another gas station just a little ways down the road towards the city on Washington Street. There are 3, I believe, up at the 395 interchange. So the concept of this overlay and its impact on just on this one particular type of business, I don't believe, from my point of view, is enough to say we shouldn't do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Alderwoman Philbrick?
I just had would like a ruling from Corporation Council. This ordinance directly affects my neighborhood, and I fully intend to vote in favor of it unless I'm advised by Corporation Council that it's conflict of interest.
Your obligation is to vote unless you have a conflict. And I think you've disclosed the fact that you live in the neighborhood, but you're not uniquely affected. The entire neighborhood is involved.
And can I just make a comment that her property is not within the village district overlay proposed? So you're not within it.
So you can build a gas station there, Joanne.
Perfect. Problem solved.
Is there further comment on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment?
The amendment is to remove
The amendment is to remove point 6 of that section, just for clarity.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Those opposed? Motion fails. 1 to 6. Yeah. Now, before us again is the ordinance as amended. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Burnham?
Deanna? Yeah, just stay. Just get comfy. So thank you for bringing this forward and all the hard work that you've done. I just have a few questions. I'm going to try to be fast, but I have a lot of. But you answered a lot of them. One of them is a comparable post-industrial city where this had worked, and Middletown is frequently a city I look to for guidance on development and economics and demographics and things like that. So thank you for that. I found a neat report card from the Center for Land Use Education about how to grade an overlay zoning district, and it includes cost, public acceptance, political acceptance, equity, administration, and scale. And you answered almost all of that, and I just have a few questions, and got good grades on this report card. I'll share it with you. It's pretty neat. I know you held one information session about, and this plan has probably been around for a while because there's people on it that are in the same jobs. So what was the stakeholdering process for pre-implementation?
Okay, so a couple things. So I had an individual meeting that wasn't specifically about village districts, but it was for people that lived in Norwichtown area. There was probably about 15 people that came, and I stayed after work one day and met with them about concerns about development and how we can concerns they had about future development, especially on Town Street in that area. And so I talked to them about this concept of village district. So this is before the application was actually written, and said, this is what we're thinking about doing. And Regan was there, and we talked about it. And I think that some of the people who spoke tonight were thrilled about this option, instead of just, rezoning everything and changing the uses and do this, to have bubble overlay. So we had that first kind of scoping meeting, and that was just because it was requested of me to have that with the neighborhood. And then, of course, we've been participating in the Plan of Conservation and Development implementation meetings, and this has been one of the things that's in the plan. Regan has been sort of running with that and really liked that aspect of community character. So that, I wouldn't say it's a public scoping, but the public's available to come to those meetings, and sometimes they do. And they have been really enthusiastic about what the city's doing. And then we did have one meeting at the public library, and I would say maybe about 20 people were there, and they were very supportive. There was no negative comments. They had similar questions that have been asked tonight. And we thought about, Regan and I talked about having a second one after the commission that was before the commission on the city plan voted their recommendations. And then after they had positive recommendations, we thought, you know what, we're just going to kind of keep it on the back burner. It had been in the newspaper. There was opportunities for people to call me, and we put that out there. And I really haven't had any really negative comments about it. There was someone that asked about it in concern to a potential business, and we spoke about them working with staff anyways, and working with us right now, and how they can fit appropriately in the Norwichtown area. So, there is no one here this evening that was speaking really primarily against it, hard against it. So I think we did really try to encompass everyone's concerns. And the recommendations that the Commission on the City Plan made, primarily those little text changes were recommended from Regan and I, except for that one thing to remove I think it was the utility stations that came out of there, and said, you know what, MPU might need to do something, blah, blah, blah. So we were like, okay, they can make it look attractive. That's no problem.
Great, thank you. Just a technical question for current existing businesses, because everything's essentially grandfathered if you're current existing, but if they have to do some sort of a fix or repair or upgrade that triggers a permit, would they then be subject to this?
Yes, well, it depends on what it is. Right. Again, so if it's normal maintenance, they break a window, fix your window, that kind of thing. But if they decide that they're going to change all their doors out, say on a building, that's kind of a somewhat modern 50s, 60s building or something, some of the buildings we're obviously not going to say, hey, you should put in wooden historic windows in that building. You're going to make it look appropriate for what it is, Okay. But if they say we're really thinking of a new facade on our building, we're changing our look, upgrading, that's the opportunity to say, here's the guidelines, these are some things you should consider, this is how it really can look great. But, there's reasonableness in this. I think that the regs are reasonable, and so are the guidelines to work with people on them. Again, this is not a heavy hammer. This is a carrot, I think, to get businesses to do things that we want them to do. And I think it only brings more customers to them to be in an area that people want to come and visit.
Great. Thank you. I had another question, but I forgot it, so I'll skip to this one. I work in quality improvement, and we frequently use the Plan, Do, Study, Act approach, quick test of change. This won't be a quick test of change. This will be probably slow, and we'll have to see how it goes because it's new. Would it be possible to kind of get an update on, with some periodicity, and I don't know what it is, and we can talk about it separately, but what Tier 1, 2, and 3 requests are coming in, what are approved and denied, and why, just so that we can see as a body how this is working and then maybe make adjustments as needed.
Absolutely. So the city manager's asked us to quarterly do reports for him that he can give to the council. Perfect. So that's something quarterly I can add into my reports. This is what we've got in for village district reviews. This is how we looked at them. This is how it's going. This is what the outcome is. So yeah, I think that'll be easy so you can see how that's going. But you are correct. This is not something that you put these regs in place. Who knows? Something might happen. It could boom, boom, something, property sell, and they're trying to do something, and you see a change right away. Yeah, you see something right away, but they're there in place, and this is changes that can happen over a long period of time. You see incremental change, and you have to expect that.
And then my last question. So we're only looking at Norwichtown. What is the approach? Is there a phased approach to bring on the other nodes?
Okay. So the regulations, there's two sections of those, actually the two sections of the regulations. Primarily, there's a section that says, this is village districts, this is all about village districts. Then there's a little portion in the regulations that say, Norwichtown, and it talks about the uses, like we just talked about, the additional uses, which is like a bed and breakfast use there, which was an added use that's not normally there, and then there is the uses that are a little different that are prohibited. So when you do another area, what happens is we'd come back to the council again to amend section 3.10 to add in what the next areas, say Ockham, Tapville, Greenville, wherever we decide it to be, that then has their use table there, what's additional things that are allowed or additional uses that not allowed, and then the guidelines get updated so that we can add in the guidelines, the section which is specific to the architecture of that area, and then the zoning map again, an area for where that bubble, where that overlay is going to fall in that area. So it is, again, it's a three-piece, but primarily the zoning regulations and primarily the ordinance for primarily the resolution for the guidelines, those don't change. The guidelines, except for the portion that's specific now to wherever the next village district is, and whatever in the regulations, that little section we change. But the regulatory background that made it happen is already in place. It's just adding on those different ones as time goes on.
Right, is there a phased approach for bringing those, is there a plan, like 2
Yeah,
years, 5 years, let's see how
I
it
think it would be
goes?
sooner. I'd like to see, you know, if this works and the council is in favor of it, and it's there, I work for you, you know, I work for you, and I would love the council to say, you know what, Deanna, we like this, go to this one next. This is where we see things happening. I think that would make sense to do that, and then I would just come forward, you know, every 6 months or whenever it makes appropriate to do this and get those all in place if that was what you wanted to do.
And I just had a question about the map, or is that the next one?
Next.
Next one, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, so the ordinance before us has been amended, so I'm going to ask for a motion to postpone until July 2nd, 2018, for final action, which will allow us to do our due diligence and give both publications that we are required.
So moved.
Delucia Nash. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Unanimous.
Number 3, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, accompanying the zoning ordinance of the City of Norwich by defining the limits of the Norwich Town Village District.
A motion to bring it forward, please. Burnham and Gould. Is there discussion? Please.
Surprise, I have a question about the map.
Sure.
So we got a list of parcels that were within 150 feet and then 500 feet, and I wasn't quite sure why.
Because that's within the zoning regulations it's required to do. So you need to know, you have to know what everything, the properties that fall within 150 feet and 500 feet. But we also provided you a list of the properties that are within the village district.
So are the properties with it, so the district is the black line, and then the red line is the 150-foot buffer, and the other black line is the 500-foot buffer? That's what it says on here.
Let's put it up. Hold on. Oh, you don't have it?
Here, I have it, here.
The map that we have with us doesn't have that, but yes, there is
Wrong
the.
map.
I know, but there is the, because that's the one we want to show you, that's the actual one to adopt,
Right,
it would be that.
right, yeah,
But yes, there's the 150, then there's the 500.
So are the ones on the 150-foot buffer?
Yep.
Are those subject to this, or?
No.
Okay.
Only,
that's what it-
no, only what's in, it's just that's what's required to
Okay.
list who they are within the 150 feet, so
It was
that's
just a
what we
little
did.
confusing, thank you.
No, I know, it's in the
I
regulations.
don't speak ordinance
No,
all the time.
no, but that's the boundary.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to postpone to July 2nd, 2018. Nash, Philbrook. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
City Manager's report. Oops, sorry. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Browning again. Alderman,
I'm sorry.
Browning.
Yes, Alderman Browning.
I would like to request in the form of a motion that this be just accepted into the record and not be read as an effort to speed up this proceeding, which is going to go beyond 10 o'clock tonight at our current rate.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous.
But thank you for the report. We promise to read it.
Thank you, John. Old
Old-
business.
Old business number 1, relative to establishing the village district guidelines.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Nash, Gould. Is there, like that? Is there discussion? Yes. Alderman DeLucia.
Mayor, at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we amend this resolution to add the changes recommended by the Commission on City Plan in its June 11th, 2018 meeting as a result, I'm sorry, June 11th, 2018 letter as a result of their June 5th, 2018 special meeting.
Is there a second? Nash. All those in favor? Unanimous. Any further discussion on the resolution as amended? I'd recommend that we postpone this final vote again till July 2nd to be consistent. Browning, second by Nash. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Citizen comment on resolutions.
Declare citizen comment on resolutions open. If you'd like to speak to any of them, please give your name and address. You will have 3 minutes. And I'd like to speak under citizen comment. Anyone like to? Yes, sir. Mr. Crabb, please.
Again, good evening, David Crabb, 47 Prospect Street. I'm opposed to resolutions 4 and 5 unless they're amended. Resolution 4 reminded me of a famous quote by Claire Booth Luce, and it is, "No good deed shall go unpunished." Now, instead of a hearty well done after completing the budget, the city manager is assigned this 10-page police state document that is beyond the city manager charter requirements. Either the development mayor or the council goals for the charter are more appropriate for Resolution 4. However, Resolution 5 shares a common objective and might address both matters and allow the partners, between Central Avenue and Pomina Mills to enjoy the section 7.10, pages 9 and 10, where everything is capitalized to reflect the police state nature of this 10-page document. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to speak under citizen comment. Anyone else on the citizen comment? Third time, anyone else like to speak under citizen comment? Seeing no one else, I declare citizen comment closed, and thank you. Business.
Resolution 1, relative to approving the list of applicants under the Neighborhood Assistance Act.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Nash and Burnham. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous. Vote is 7-0.
Thank you. Number 2, relative to City Manager Solomon signing a Connecticut Partnership for Success Initiative grant.
Nash, Gould. Is there discussion? Nash.
What's the grant do?
would you like to hear
Yes,
from?
please.
Yes, please.
The Partnership for Success grant is the one that helps curtail underage drinking and misuse of prescription drugs. We already have the grant. They want to give us $16,000 more to enhance our youth peer advocate by supporting attendance at state and local conferences and enhance the community's ability to deliver substance abuse prevention programs. We're paying a large chunk of this money to the Norwich Police Department to...
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, we're paying...
For the police department.
We're paying a large chunk of this
Gotcha.
$16,000 to the police department to do party patrols, compliance checks, and drug take-back days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? 7-0.
Number 3, relative to an appointment of a regular member to the Harbor Commission.
Motion to bring it forward, please. DeLucia, Gould. Is there discussion? Seeing none, for the benefit of the public, the gentleman being appointed is Mr. Peter A. Barber. All those in favor? Unanimous? Vote is 7-0.
Number 4, relative to City Manager Zan Salomon, be and hereby authorized and directed to execute and periodically monitor the performance of the developer at 347 Central Avenue.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Gould, DeLucia. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderwoman Gould.
Just want everyone to be aware that 347 Central Avenue will be closely monitored by the Buildings Board of Review. This is one of our projects, and we will be watching the progress of Kang Properties to make sure that they are doing everything in a timely fashion. I don't expect Mr. Salomon to be out there checking on their progress, but I can assure you that the Board of Review will be watching.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Vote 7-0.
Number 5, relative to inspection services required for the completion of Phase 2 of the Panema Mill project.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Nash, Gould. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderwoman Filbert.
I have a little bit of a problem when I read this resolution, and I guess it's because I'm that way by nature. So if I understand this, Panema Mills is going to pay the city $25,000 to basically expedite their inspections. When something like that happens, it gives me the feeling that are we then beholden to Panema Mills because they gave us the money? One would hope not, but wouldn't it be awkward if Panema Mills gave us $25,000 for inspections and then we went over there and we said, nope, 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 nope? It's just, I don't know, has this ever been done before in the city?
I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question. I can tell you that I participated in discussions with the principals, and the purpose of the funds are, in fact, to have us have an inspector there who is working for the city's interest, making sure that what is installed is in compliance with all our building codes. And this actually then frees up our remaining building department to handle the rest of the city's needs. They will be adhering to the state building code as blind to the fact that the sum of funds is being actually provided by the developer of Panema. They're really helping us out, actually, when you consider the budget we just went through. That's my personal opinion, but Deanna would like to address, if you would like her response.
Okay, but I have a follow-up. It makes me uncomfortable on a couple of levels, because I remember sitting in this gallery when we waived all the permit fees for Panema Mills, and then in retrospect, I think a lot of people realized, oops, we just gave away the farm because we don't have the money now to pay the inspectors to do the necessary inspections. I'm happy that Panema Mills has the resources to put this money up front, and I'm hoping that when the next developer comes along who wants their project to move along, and the city might not have the resources or the personnel to do it, that for a fee, they can, and I know I'm being facetious, but it just, as I say, I don't, it's like, I say to Mr. Browning, well, Sam, if I give your mother $100, do you think you can get her to vote for me? It just doesn't sit right with me.
First, I have to convince her to vote for me.
Oh, okay. Are you using that? So I'd be happy, Deanna, to hear your explanation.
Sure. And you know what? You're on point, Joanne. I'm going to tell you you're on point with a lot of things you're saying. So we have 2.5 building officials. One of Dan Coley is building and housing code. So we have Greg Arpin and Jim Troger that are full-time building officials, and then Dan's split between them. And what was happening is when that project goes on, they have hundreds of workers there at one time, and they're moving really fast. And with 2.5 building officials for the whole city, they can't just spend their time at that project. So what happens is those men they're working, they have to keep the project going. So what happens when they go out for an inspection, walls are being closed up. They weren't having an opportunity to look at electrical, reopen the wall, rip it apart. So a lot of work that they were doing was having to stop and actually tear it out, look at it again. So they recognize one key, that it's to their benefit if they help with ensuring that we have enough building official staff to go out there. They are aware that I think waiving the fees for their project, put us in a situation that, couldn't hire another building official. So right now, this year, we had some monies when we didn't have a blight officer, that we have a building official there working 25 hours a week right now, and a licensed building official. He works for my department. He works for me. Jim Troger supervises him, and he does not work for One Key. He works for the city. So he is a temporary seasonal employee for the city right now, and we're hoping to continue those hours. I don't see that it's a full-time position by any means. They report back into our office. They do their reports in our computer system, in our WAGSA system. So it's a way that we know what's continually going on there. It does not mean that our other building officials won't make it up there sometimes and look at, because there's going to be other times besides those 25, 30 hours a week. But we want to make sure that they want their project to move ahead, and we make sure that things aren't getting covered up and that we're missing things, because it's such a big project. But in the future, we do need to weigh really heavily waiving fees, building permit fees, for that reason, because in this case, we're very grateful. I'm really happy and grateful that they will contribute, and that was a discussion we had with them, because you want your project to move along. We want you to project to move along. We don't have the money and resources. I don't have staff money to hire someone to do that for you. So this was sort of a compromise, and a good one right now. And with future developments that we are talking about, other larger projects in the city, this would, we'd have to weigh that very heavily again, that kind of thing would happen.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Alderman Browning.
I will be voting in favor of this. Once again, this was the flip side of Panema Mills is wonderful. Let's waive their fees. If it was a much smaller project and a much smaller nonprofit, it could have been, actually they're not a nonprofit, but if it was a small nonprofit, you might have been able to absorb it very easily. Obviously, that's not the case, because they're probably going to require hundreds of inspections. But it was obviously poor planning on the city's part. And this is normally you might have been able to float an additional inspector with all the building fees coming in from this, but this is a workaround, and I guess it's a lesson learned.
Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Gould.
Having about 20 years of experience in the construction business with my business, and knowing building officials from other areas and other towns, this is not that unusual, and it's really not the fault of the city. So please don't, it hurts me that you say this is the fault of the city. This is done in large construction projects all over the country because they want their project moving along. And it costs money to put up a wall, rip it down because somebody thought that electrical behind it, plumbing behind it, HVAC behind it got inspected, and it did it. This actually will probably save Panema money by having a building inspector who's working for us, not for them, but who's looking out for the interests of the city of Norwich, on site or on call when they need them to get their inspections done so this project can keep moving along. This is not the fault of the city of Norwich. In large construction projects, many big-time corporations pay to have building inspectors on site at their beck and call so their project, which has deadlines and timelines, keeps moving forward.
And we did look at construction services, just so you know, like going out to other companies and engineering firms, and it's so expensive. And for them, it would be really expensive. And there was no mechanism to say, you hire someone to do that. So it is it's our responsibility to do our inspections. Plus, we want to make sure that, our people who are working for us are reporting in the way that we want it to in our systems, and have Jim have some control as the building official of who's working for him. So it really is a good scenario right now, and their goal is to have this project finished within the year. I think that's what they're saying. They're phase 2 to get done. So I'm hopeful that this money we won't be going back next year and asking them. They want their project to move along. They want to finish that, the second phase of this project. So.
Well, thank you both. I learned something new. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Browning.
The reason why I said the city made a mistake, and perhaps I should say the city council made a mistake, since I doubt that any of the staff was responsible for this, was simply that this was required an additional negotiation when normally it would be covered by fees that would have been paid in the course of doing the project. And I doubt that the council at the time really thought ahead to consider those implications, because they obviously didn't raise this alternative method at the time. So I do consider it to be a mistake of the former council. Take that for what you will.
Excuse me. Thank you. Is there further discussion? Yes.
Yeah,
Pro Tem Nash.
I sat on the council when we made those decisions, so I'm going to defend that council's actions. It's not a question you, ma'am. At the time that the Pamina Mills was developing in Norwich, the market crashed, everything was stopped. We lost a couple investors because of the market and the value of some of the properties. Pamina Mills was pretty much I'm going to say was on its way out, if it wasn't for the decisions that the council made to help evaluate the tax issues and the payments to the taxes and stuff. They were on their way out. And what that council did that time, and I sit here and I stand by my decision, was able to keep that project alive. And now look what we did as a council. That council sat here and made that tough decision, knowing that it was going to cause us a little financial issue in the future. But at the time, that project was dead in the water if it wasn't for the decision of that council. So it was not a mistake. It was setting the city up for the future. And the Pamina Mills is going to spur a great deal of economic development in that area, and hopefully becomes one of the village overlays because of the quaintness of the Taft section. So I just want to clarify that I don't believe anyone that sat on the council at that time felt what they did was a mistake.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
Not to further extend this discussion, but personally, I would like to see this become another service that we add to our portfolio, so that hopefully, as we see other large development projects come into the city on all parts, on the commercial, light industrial, residential, whatever it may be, that this is a service that we can offer that serves a client, serves a potential taxpayer, and at the same time manages our workforce, as long as it does not become a mechanism to reduce staff.
I agree. I think, though, most developers come in and they feel like their fees should pay for the building officials to go out there and do their inspections. But when you have a project like Panema, which is an amazing project, it's one that it's just beautiful, and it's something to be really proud of in this city. They want that look at it, but it's huge. 2.5 building officials, they could spend, a lot of time there when it's going fast. So I think you're right. This needs to be something that we can talk about right from the beginning, and after an approval, because you can't condition any kind of approvals on these kind of things. But when you're starting to talk about different financial packages that the city might offer. And it's like, yeah, we could do this, but this is what we expect if you want this project to move along quickly. We just don't have the capacity right now with staff. This may not be an issue if, the economy changes and we're booming in the city and we have a huge team of building officials, but right now we're not there yet. But the goal is that the city will boom and that we will have enough staff in the future, and this may not ever become an issue. But in the meanwhile, I think you're right. I think it's definitely an asset for them to have a building official go out when they need them, and to do that for them. And it's helpful to us. I think it's good. And it's not a benefit position. It's someone that, it's what really kind of works good as a seasonal, temporary kind of person. It works well.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
I
Motion
hereby move
7-0.
pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-200, subsection 6, that the members of the Norwich City Council go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the acquisition or disposition of real estate or interest in real estate when publicly regarding the proposed acquisition or disposition would cause a likelihood of an increased price to acquire or a diminished price to dispose of the property, and to review information given the city in confidence not required to be disclosed by law. City Manager John Salamone, Corporate Counsel Michael E. Driscoll, Planning Director Deanna Rose shall be asked to participate during all or portions of this executive session at the request of the City Council.
Second, Nash. All those in favor? Unanimous? Council, come back to order. Motion to return, please.
So moved.
Nash, Gould, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Browning, those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Let the minutes reflect that no votes were taken.
No votes were taken. Minutes reflect. Thank you.
That was easy.
Nash, Gould.